Today's San Francisco 49ers Report is sponsored by 8 Sleep. Get $200 off on the pod cover at 8sleep.com/chatsports. And by using that link, not only do you get $200 off, you also get free shipping. We'll tell you more about 8 Sleep coming up here in just a few moments. The San Francisco 49ers signing 2 defensive ends going into NFL free agency. They inked Ernest Brown to a contract, used to play with the Los Angeles Rams, and they have signed Raymond Johnson, who was with the Detroit Lions. So you have a player from a division rival and a player against the team that you faced in the NFC Championship game. First, more on Ernest Brown. He was a 5th-round pick in 2021. He played his college football at Northwestern. Solid size at 6'4", 270. In his career, 12 games, 0 sacks. Given that size, he's a little bit slow, not twitchy at all. He will be a training camp body most likely for this football team. I highly doubt that he's going to be able to crack the 53-man roster. And then some more on Johnson here. He went undrafted in 2021. He played his college football at Georgia Southern. Similar size and build, 6'3", 264. Right away, he actually played in 15 games with the New York Giants in 2021, primarily on special teams, has not made an appearance at the NFL level since then. So the Niners signing 2 defensive ends. What is the future of one of their defensive ends? Clelin Ferrell's going to be a free agent, so too is Chase Young. And will the Niners elect to bring Chase Young back after they acquired him at the NFL trade deadline this past year? It was certainly a Jekyll and Hyde year for Chase Young. He comes to the Bay Area with a lot of hype. Former number 2 pick in 2020, a year after Nick Bosa. Both him and Nick Bosa played at Ohio State. Chase Young won Defensive Rookie of the Year. And then knee injuries really hurt him the next couple of years. And this year, he certainly showed some flashes. What's of note here is that Nick Bosa, during locker room cleanout day earlier this week after the Niners lost the Super Bowl, said, "I want Chase Young back." But this becomes a very interesting conversation. In 2023, Chase Young did have 7.5 sacks between his time with Washington as well as with the San Francisco 49ers. 7 tackles for loss, 0 forced fumbles, and 0 fumble recoveries. What's weird, though, is that the Commanders just simply are not the level of team that the San Francisco 49ers are. That's clear and obvious, right? But he was actually a better player on a defense that was worse with the Commanders, where he had 5 sacks in 7 games. He only had 2.5 sacks in 9 games, and of course came under fire after the lack of effort on the Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown run in the NFC Championship game. Of course, he wasn't the only player that was lacking effort, but he was one of them. And for a player who's 6'5", 264, is so gifted and has all this ability, it's disappointing to see him lacking in the hustle department on a play like that in a game of that significance, right? But when he got traded from Washington to San Francisco, the word on him was he would occasionally take plays off, and he wasn't beloved by any means in the locker room. So that lack of effort and the Jekyll and Hyde nature of it has led to consistent results. And because of that, it's going to be hard to commit to Chase Young for a long-term contract given the injuries to his knee as well as the effort level. But then, this is why he's somewhat of a polarizing figure. How about how he played against Kansas City, especially in that first half? Had that sack of Patrick Mahomes, able to collapse the pocket off the edge. I thought he made his presence be known on a couple of different occasions. And his Pro Football Focus grades in 2023 were pretty good. 74.5 overall grade, 75.8 pass rush grade. He tallied 48 hurries, 8 hits, and 66 total pressures. What I would do, you want to come back on a 1-year, $15 million contract, I'd think about that. 2 years, $30 million, hoping that he could be engaged. You're going to pair him up with Nick Bosa, his college teammate, Chris Kocurek, best defensive line coach in the NFL, with maybe a better scheme. That's what I would do. But if he can get more than that, which I very well expect he might, on the market in free agency, I'm fine with letting him walk, and then you try to address that position elsewhere. How would you address it? Should the Niners re-sign Chase Young? Type R for re-sign, W for let him walk in free agency. Chase, lack of production, lack of effort, and he's going to be too expensive? Share your thoughts with me down in the comment section right now. Start to take some of your questions on the 49ers report. You have this one from Izzy B, $10 super chat. Thank you so much for the donation, real one. You think Bill Belichick will try to get Nick Saban as an assistant or as a coordinator? He has worked with Belichick. Yes, Saban wasn't good as an NFL head coach, but is still one of the best. So if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm calling Bill Belichick. And he's going to be the head coach of the defense. He can hire whoever the heck he wants. But Izzy B, I don't think that Nick Saban is going to come with him. It's one thing for Belichick to have the ego that he does and to go from being a head coach to a defensive coordinator. It's another thing for Nick Saban, who's old, who's accomplished everything you need to accomplish in college football, to go from being head coach to not even a defensive coordinator. So I think Belichick would be able to build a really, really good staff and a quality staff. It wouldn't include Saban. He retired for a reason. He even said that he got worn down and didn't have the same pursuit of greatness that he's had in years prior because he's starting to get a little bit older. That's Father Time. Search I-87, I agree with Stephen A. Smith that Kyle used Steve Wilks. I don't know how Stephen A. comes up with the take that he used Steve Wilks. In what way is he using Steve Wilks? This is a move that didn't really surprise me much at all. And it's one that I saw coming, and that's why we talked about it on the Niners report the other day before the news actually happened. And you think about what happened with Steve Wilks and San Francisco, there was a lack of cohesion right from the jump. I don't think that Shanahan really trusted Steve Wilks. It was the first time that he hired outside of the family Shanahan tree, and there was so much talk about the front not being tied to the back end. You can blame Kyle Shanahan for this, just not for the reasons everybody is saying, calling him scapegoat, calling Wilks the fall guy. You can blame Shanahan for just making the incorrect hire because he went outside of what he knows. But players voiced this year they were frustrated with the scheme. Shanahan called out Wilks after the Minnesota game, made him address the all-out blitz, zero blitz right before halftime publicly. Wilks had to move from the booth to the sideline. The defense regressed in 2023. They were a top 5 scoring defense, right? But third down rate, 27th. EPA per play for number 1 to 12. And then the Niners rushing defense went from number 1 to 26th. They gave up 130 rushing yards per game in the NFL playoffs. For a team that bills itself as physical, they weren't that. Tail end of the year, they weren't good. And anytime they went up against an elite quarterback this year, they got cooked. Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, writing was on the wall. Kelly, $5. Thoughts on Wilks being fired as deflection for blaming Shanahan? I thought we all saw this coming. Kelly, Search I basically answered both of those questions back to back, and I answered those questions during our live as well. Really appreciate your support of the show, but my thoughts for Search I, Kelly, same exact thoughts for you. I agree. You could blame Shanahan, but you can't say that Wilks is being the fall guy. It just didn't work out. And again, that can be on Kyle Shanahan. Today's 49ers report is sponsored by 8 Sleep. Get $200 off the Pod 3 cover at 8sleep.com/chatsports. That's 8sleep.com/chatsports. This is a whole new sleep to power a whole new you. What the Pod 3 cover is, temperature cooling or heating pad that you can slip right over your mattress. What's awesome about this is that by the power of your own phone, you can control how cool or how warm your 8 Sleep gets so that you and your significant other or whoever you sleep with, if you have different sleep preferences, you can go cool on your side, hot on theirs, or vice versa. Now, I'm somebody who loves cold exposure. I cold plunge and cold shower every single day for health and wellness reasons. I also sauna every single night. So I'm able to use this because you can get it as low as the low to mid 50s up to 100 plus degrees. Kickstart the year fully charged. Sleep is at the foundation of our success as human beings. It's science how good it is for you. And what's awesome, you slip this over your mattress cover. You can control the temperatures from your phone. It is absolutely terrific. The intelligent sleep system, $200 off the pod cover, 8sleep.com/chatsports. Link is down below in the comment section and in the description of this video. Geo Dude is next up. Christian McCaffrey can play the Deebo role, And then you can feature Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, and George Kittle a little bit more. I love McCaffrey. He's a really special player. Running in between the tackles, outside of the tackles to the edge, being able to catch the ball out of the backfield, run routes out of the backfield. He can run routes as a slot. I do worry about him coming off 2,000 all-purpose yards with his age and mileage and some years of injury history, given the workload that he accumulated this past year. Oftentimes, the leading rushers in the NFL the following year don't have anywhere close to the production, and that's kind of why this loss is such a bummer in the Super Bowl, because you had such a special roster. You have some of these players who are starting to get a little bit older, and you're not able to capitalize. So I love Christian McCaffrey as a player. I'm not quite sure he's going to replace Deebo, because Deebo can line up in the slot and out wide. You don't want McCaffrey doing that on every single play. But if you did trade him away for some good draft capital, and then you featured Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, and you still like Christian McCaffrey, I do think that offense wouldn't be awful. They've obviously missed Deebo when he's been out. The win-loss record is completely different when he misses games, but that's something that you can adjust to. Lisa Rodriguez, excuse me. We have a Lisa Hernandez who watches the show. Faithful ladies. I'd take Brandon Ayuk over Deebo. The problem is Kyle can't play call without him. Deebo is central to this offense. Look at what happens when he's out. And yeah, I alluded to some of that during that last Super Chat, and there's no doubt that this Niners team is a lot different with Deebo compared to what it is and the look of it and the feel of it when Deebo is not in the lineup. Deebo Samuel is a one-of-one player, very unique as an athlete, a threat to take it to the paint from anywhere, anytime. He gets his hands on the football. He can run a variety of routes, leads all wide receivers in yak since coming into the league, has pretty good hands, even though he had a couple of drops in the Super Bowl. He needs to improve on that. There's no doubt. He's been disappointed given the contract extension he's had. But yeah, when he's out, the Niners do suffer a little bit, because I think the confidence and the swagger and the leadership and him being a captain, all those things really, really do matter. But I do believe if you did move off Deebo, it's not like your entire season is just going to go right down the toilet. Levi Bishop, $5 super chat. Christian McCaffrey is our dog. Not letting him continue to eat in the second half against Kansas City was the biggest mistake. Secondly, to receive Ingram's ball in overtime. Yeah, with the whole running thing, the Chiefs switched up their defense. They went from a lot of zone to a lot of man, and they started to lock in on the ground game. And sometimes you see teams have success with running it early, and then you see them go away from the run later. A lot of that is not because they're going away from the run to just go away from the run, and they're ignoring that aspect of the game. Sometimes it's, the defense is playing us a little bit differently. I thought the Chiefs in that game started to stop the run a little bit better, so you started to throw it. But I did think running the ball could have been a little bit more of a point of emphasis from minute 1 to minute 60. At times, the Niners did go away from that. And yeah, taking the ball in overtime has obviously become a very debated topic. I think Shanahan and John Lynch even talked about this. They wanted that defense to get a little bit of a rest after regulation. They had just gotten gashed, and over the last couple of drives, they looked winded and tired. Now, I get it. If the Chiefs score a touchdown there, it's not like the regular season. You do get the ball back, and the game is on your terms. And maybe you go for overtime instead of having your defense go out there once again. But the Niners just didn't take care of business. And that's really what this game comes down to. They shot themselves in the foot on numerous occasions. Christian McCaffrey fumbled inside the Chiefs' 30 on the opening drive. You could have had 3 or 7 points right there. Jake Moody missed PAT. That's another point right there. The fumbled punt woke the Chiefs' offense up. They didn't do anything up until that point. You gave up 7 there. Multiple bad penalties. Like, all of these self-inflicted mistakes led to San Francisco losing the football game. Michael Everett, Aussie. Oi, $8 super chat. Would you trade Armstead? He seems to be injured a lot. I'd try to restructure his contract. If he's not with the Niners in 2024, that won't surprise me at all. He has an enormous cap hit coming up this upcoming season of $28 million. He's way, way too expensive at that number for the production that he gives you. I think he's extremely valuable. I love him as a player, but $28 million for a player who's been injured the last 2 years for the lack of production, I'm good. 9 or 63, whose contracts did the front office try and restructure in order to free up some cap space? They've already restructured Armstead's a couple times. They restructured George Kittle's. I think Deebo is the next one that you try to restructure. I think you try to extend Charvarius Ward, and then you kind of backload that contract to free up some money over the next few years. Charvarius Ward is a player who's starting to come into his own, second-team All-Pro at 29 years old. And if you can keep him, and then you can open up some dollars right now, that makes some sense. He who collects any chance they make a trade for Joey Bosa if he's being shopped. Nick Bosa said, I want Chase Young back. Can you imagine if you went up to Nick Bosa and you were like, Chase Young, Joey Bosa? He'd take Joey Bosa. There's no doubt. I mean, can you imagine playing on opposite sides of the defensive line with your brother? That'd be incredible. It's just not realistic because Bosa is making a ton of money. Ken Dowsland, there's been some confusion about how long Brock's rookie deal is. I have heard 3 years, also 4 years. How long is the deal? So if you're a first-round pick, a team can exercise your fifth-year option, and that puts you under team control for about 5 years. If you're not a first-round pick, you get a 4-year contract. So for this case, and of course, if you're a UDFA, it changes. But if you're drafted, and Brock Purdy was, 4 years on that deal. So he's already played 2. So you have 2 more years that Brock Purdy is under team control for the very affordable price tag that I think is the best value in the National Football League. Less than $1 million this year for top 5 MVP vote getter. It's pretty damn good. Make sure you subscribe to us here on the 49ers Report. Moving forward, programming announcement. We will be going live Tuesday, Thursday, every single week at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. Turn on your notice, set your alarm so that you can join us week in, week out. And of course, when breaking news happens, we'll be going live for those events as well.